What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to be making a video on my 2002 Snapper Model 926-6E, which means it originally had a 9 horsepower engine, which was 318 cc, and it's 26 wide. Now the 9 horsepower is actually exactly the same as the 8 horsepower Tecumseh. There's actually no difference at all. So it was really the same as an 8. You could consider it an 826. Anyway, I went ahead and upgraded it and put a 10 horsepower 358 cc Tecumseh flathead engine on it, and I went ahead and upgraded the tires to the X tracs. But I wanted to make a video on this unit because I had the 826, the Snapper 826 Series 6. I used commercially for, well, I've had it, I bought it used in 2005 for $450. It was a base unit, no electric start, none of the stuff that this one has. And I used it, we'll say commercially, 10 years. And it had well over 1,000 hours on it. Now, I'm not going to say it had 12 years or the exact amount of years that I owned it, because there was a couple winters that we had barely any snow, and there was a couple winters that I used another snowblower instead of the Snapper, like my errands. But I will say that the 826 got used commercially 10 years and had well over 1,000 hours on it. I still have it. I'm getting ready to give it a final tune-up and sell it. It's showing its wear, you know. It was used commercially, and the impeller blades are bent a bit. One of the augers is bent, and I have a replacement for it. And the Tecumseh, the valves need to be put back into spec because it's not running. It lost power. So I went ahead and picked up this one about 2 months ago now for $150, which was a great deal because these are really well-made machines. This was during a time period when they were still built very solid, but had all the modern features. So it was before they started getting cheaper and cheaper with machines and started putting Chinese engines on them. This is like the best of the best. You know, it was that sweet time when you can still get the American-made engines and the machines are built solid. Now, I made the video on my little single-stage Snapper, the 5-horse, it's in my video log if you want to watch it. So I made a video on that one, and I had this style blower for a long time, and I've been meaning to make a video on it, and I'm finally doing so. So let's go over some of the great features on this machine. It came standard with, you know, the chute deflector from behind the dashboard, the good old chute control mechanism. It has single hand operation, so I can let that down and then have my right hand free to turn the chute and control that and the speed. It's got a headlight. Now, that originally had a halogen bulb. I added an LED. Eventually I'm going to add the aux beam headlights and put a rectifier and capacitors on, but that's pretty bright. As you can see on the dash, it originally said 926. I went ahead and put a 10 decal over the 9 because it's now officially a 10 horsepower engine, which is what you want. You want the 10 on the 26 wide. The 8 was mighty powerful for the 24 wide, but when you go into the 26 wide, they consider it a 9 horsepower. It really isn't. It's the same thing as the 8, so I went ahead and upgraded. As you can see, that's an HMSK 100 engine, so it's 358 cc. So this is the holy grail of the Tecumsehs. It's the biggest flathead winter engine they built, and it's a workhorse. So I love these engines. Now, like I said, I upgraded the tires to these X tracs. I got them for $10. Like I said, the engine I had laying around. The only thing I had to do was get a shaft adapter, because the original engine was a 1-inch shaft and this one had a 3/4 inch shaft. So I had to get a shaft adapter to bring it from 3/4 to 1 inch. and a stepped key, which brought it from 3/16 to 1/4. But yeah, it has all, this one has all the features that the other one didn't. It has the electric start. It has the single hand operation. It has the chute deflector control from behind the dashboard. It has the headlight. It's got, I believe, 6 forward and 1 reverse. Nice tall chute. I added this shovel from an errands I had. It came with the drift breaker bars, which is nice. Now, although I don't use these very often because we very rarely get snow that would be up above the bucket, but occasionally you might need them. And I went ahead and added easy removable wing nuts instead of having the regular bolts that held them on, because I want to be able to put them on and remove them quickly and easily without tools. Because like I said, most of the time I wouldn't be using those. Let's go over the actual construction of this machine and why snowblowers from the past are built much better than ones today. Take a look at these augers. Number one, they're tall. They're as tall as the bucket, okay? The ones now, they're not usually as high. They're not as, built as thick and strong as these old ones. And again, this gearbox, I'm not sure what this is made out of. I think it's cast iron. Okay, that's a very solid gearbox. I've never seen one of them break. Going back to the impeller, you've got a 4-blade impeller, okay, and it's cupped, all right? The gap on this machine is, as far as the impeller to the belly, there's a very small gap. So this machine throws snow really well without having to add the impeller mod. I could, but I never have had to. Because this blower throws snow really far, it works hard, it digs hard, and it very rarely clogs, okay? Compared to other machines, because it has one of the thinnest gaps out of most snowblowers. Now that impeller is made just like the Aaron's impellers were made from the same time period. The late 70s all the way up to the early 2000s. And same thing with this bucket, this style bucket. I love this style bucket. It's tall, it's deep, and it digs hard. You don't need weights for this bucket. This sucker digs into drifts really well. I mean, I have dug in, I remember one year we had drifts from the plow as high as 3 feet, and this sucker digs in hard. I've never had it ride up like people complain with the newer snowblowers, and it's an absolute workhorse. But as you can see, just from the sheer thickness of the metal and everything on it, and the grease fittings in the right places, really well built machine. Yes, it has a plastic chute, but this is a really hard poly chute. Never had issues with this chute, ever. And because it's plastic, the snow doesn't stick like metal, and it throws very far. So I know some people complain about how having a plastic chute, that's a quality plastic. That's not like the cheap, thin, flimsy plastic that's on some snowblowers, like some of the Craftsman's, where they like literally crack right in half. I have never seen one of these snapper chutes go bad. Now, this has it where you could put it in 1-wheel and 2-wheel drive. I have it in the 2-wheel drive setting right now. If you want to put it in 1-wheel drive so you can turn easier, which I don't do that because I like having ultimate control, ultimate traction, and it's not hard to turn this thing anyway. But if you want, you can just pull this pin and put it in this second hole, and then you'll have it where, you're in 1-wheel drive for transportation, and if you're in tight corners and want to turn easily. Okay? What else is there to mention? Not much, but like I said, as you can see, there's really not much plastic on this unit. I'm going to show you guys inside the gearbox and inside the belt cover area, just to give you an idea. But, you maintain these things and they work hard. I mean, this machine has always worked hard for me. Not this specific one, the 824 I have, which is basically the same machine, just 2 inches narrower with an 8 horse. And these are great units. And, Snapper was bought out by Simplicity in 2003. The final year of production on these genuine Snapper snowblowers was 2003. And then in 2004, Briggs & Stratton bought up Simplicity. And what you'll notice is from 2004 forward, the Snapper snowblowers aren't the same. They redesigned them. They're nowhere near as well built. They have been building these Snappers like this since, I believe, the early 80s. The very early ones had a shorter metal stubby chute, and then they moved on to the taller plastic chute. And I know some of the early ones had 2 headlights, and they were also red and white. But the overall construction of the chassis has stayed the same. I know a lot of the early ones didn't have the single hand operation feature and the chute deflector control from behind the dash, but like I said, they built these from like the early 80s all the way to 2003. And then unfortunately Snapper, the genuine Snapper company, was bought out, and that pretty much ended it. Now, as far as I know, Briggs discontinued the Snapper line altogether in the United States as of, I believe, last year or the year before. But yeah, you can't buy a good Snapper like this anymore unless you get it secondhand. And like I said, I got this thing for 150 bucks. People can go out and spend as much as $3,000 for a machine this good, you know, of this quality now. So new, this machine probably would have retailed for about $1,500, I'm thinking, as far as I know. Dealer only, obviously. This wasn't a big box store machine. But yeah, I have the upgraded gas cap that, you know, doesn't have the metal piece that tends to break off and fall off. I have the muffler guard on mine. You know, the carburetor is adjustable, another nice feature, something you can't get on machines today. Okay, I can dial in my carburetor. That's nice to have. But yeah, it meets the 1995 safety standards. And according to the model itself, it was a model 9266E, and this is a 2002 model year, which according to the original engine that I had on it was 2002. All right, now I'll go ahead and start it up just to show how well it starts. I rarely ever use the electric start. I use these snowblowers commercially and in the field. You know, there's no electricity available, and you don't need them anyway. They start up real easy. So let me go ahead and start it up, demonstrate how well she runs and performs, and then I'll show the inside of the gearbox and everything on my other one to show how well it's built, and show what 10 years of commercial abuse does to a machine, even this well built. Okay, prime it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. It's on choke. 3/4 throttle. Might not need choke. Purrs like a kitten. Tecumseh Snow King Flathead 358cc. Best winter engines ever built, still to this day. Show the augers turning. as you can see, it purrs like a kitten. In the snow, it works unbelievable. It's an absolute workhorse. And that's why I wanted to share it, because I know I've seen a couple videos out there of them, people saying what they bought them for, but they never really went into detail on them. And I wanted to go into detail on them because these machines stopped being produced before YouTube really became a thing. So there aren't many out there really sharing what these machines were all about, and that's why I wanted to share it. A couple more upgrades I still want to make. I don't have the only thing I don't have for it is the canopy. I might eventually get the canopy for it. You know, since I do use it commercially, I wouldn't use the canopy out in the field because it's simply just not feasible to have that on there. But it would be good to have that. Like I said, I'm going to be upgrading the lights to LEDs, like Donnie Boy 73 showed in his video. One guy showed weight bags on his, and I was wondering where you could get those, because I might be interested in getting the weight bags, even though I've never really had a problem with weight distribution on this machine. That would be ideal to have. They look, I think they're aftermarket, and I've seen them on there. There's a video out there showing them, but you know, it really doesn't matter. Was there any other upgrades I still was gonna make to this thing? I don't think I'm gonna add the impeller mod to this. I could. It's just like I said, this thing already works so well. It very rarely ever clogs, and it throws snow very far. So you know, I just can't see needing to do that. So that's about it. The light runs full time. I might add an on-off switch to that when I get the aux beams, but that's it on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and show the one I used commercially for 10 years. As you can see, this machine has been very, very well used. This auger is bent. Okay, it got bent. I have an extra one for it. And then if you look down into the impeller blades, these impeller blades are all slightly bent. That's from sucking in rocks, newspapers, wire, you name it. On the back end, the bucket is beginning to get warped again from sucking in rocks, newspapers, all that stuff. And this is a very solid, heavy-duty unit. And still, this is what ends up happening. So this is the type of stuff you need to look out for on machines, especially now that they're made not as thick like the MTDs. That type of stuff is going to happen over the years. There's just no way around it. I know on the Aaron's ones, since they're not making them as thick, the steel anymore, they're starting to put ridges into the back of the bucket like this one has here to kind of strengthen the back from doing that, from bowing out. But again, it's just something that it's going to happen over the years, especially if you use the machine commercially. You know, over the years, it takes abuse, and that's why it was time for me to retire this machine. And like I said, it's still a good solid machine, and after I give it a good full tune-up and fix some things on it, it'll be a good homeowner unit for someone. Still a lot better than a lot of machines out there. Now here's what the original tires were. It had snow hogs originally, and I had it with chains. And I'll tell you what, this combination, the snow hogs with chains, gives you ultimate traction. It really does. I've never had an issue with traction this way. But I wanted to upgrade to the X-Tracs on this machine because I didn't want to have to deal with chains anymore. It's just simply a cost measure, and I want to see how well these X-Tracs work in the snow. If these things give me great traction in the snow, then I'm not going to ever worry about chains again. You can even add chains to them, but I don't think I'll have to. All right. So when I first bought this machine in 2005, when it was 3 years old, I paid $450 for it. It didn't have the deflector cable. It had a regular wing nut to control the deflector. It didn't have the headlight. It didn't have the single hand operation. It didn't have the electric start. I added all that stuff over the years. It didn't have the chains. I added the chains. I went through with one pair of skid shoes already, and That's the second pair. As you can see also, the handle grips are completely worn out on this one. This just goes to show you how much work is on this machine, how much use is on this machine. This machine, same year, same everything. You know, it's got the 8 horse and it's a 24 wide, and you can see it has been worked hard. It has served me well. It really has. And that's why when I saw the opportunity to get that very low hour machine for $150, I grabbed it immediately. And I was lucky too, because it was on Let Go and it had about 400 views and like 40 hearts. And I just happened to be the first guy, and I got it. And like I said, it needed a good tune up, a few things here and there, and the upgrades. And now that machine right there, that's the leader of the pack. As many people know, I have the Aaron's machines, and I have the single stage snapper for lighter snows, but this is basically the leader of the pack. I had the 32 wide Aaron's for getting things done faster, but as far as digging, that's the one. Now, I wanted to go over the inside the gear case and the belt area. So I'm going to show that real quick on these machines. I want to point out how well built they're made, so that if someone decides they see one of these machines secondhand being sold, you know, why you would want to buy one of these versus buying a new unit and paying full-on retail, when you can really get a really well-built machine at a bargain. You don't have to pay $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. That's insane, you know. I saw on one of the Paul Sycamores reviews of the Husqvarna, one guy in the comments said, "Oh, I really like that machine. It's only $3,000." Only $3,000. Okay. Well, this was only $150, and I'll tell you right now, this machine will work just as hard as that Husqvarna will, if not harder. And I like this engine better. Now that's a 420cc on that, but you know, LCT. This is a 358 flathead Tecumseh. These just have more torque. They're so reliable. But anyway, here is the belt area. You have a drive belt and you have your auger belt. The drive belts typically last long, you know, very long, because that's just to drive it. It's got a nice thick auger belt, and you know, over time they wear out and you have to change them or they'll break, but it's a good strong auger belt. And as you can see, you know, that's, you know, pretty much typical in there, how that is. But, you know, just to show, good strong belts they use. Now I'm going to go ahead and show in the gearbox, the important stuff inside these machines. What makes them go? The important stuff. Let's do this real fast. Hopefully the UPS man doesn't show up on me right while I'm in the middle of this. That would be something. Alright. The chains on these machines are inside a chain case, so they're never exposed to the elements. And then look at the size of this cog gear. Look at how big that is compared to like the new Toros and all that. All right, and then you've got your hex shaft, and it's an overall simple design but very strong and effective. Also, another thing I had to repair on this machine was these have bare bushings that are part of the frame. The bushing holder is actually a lip that is part of the frame. On this side, the bushing burnt out on me, and the axle started to eat into the frame. So I had to cut that out with a saw, put it in a actual bushing, and no, bearing with a bearing holder, which Aaron's made, and that fixed that. So that's one thing to look at on these machines. That's an Achilles heel. Make sure you check your bushings, and if they start to wear, change them immediately, because you do not want the axle wearing into the frame, because unless you go through the trouble to fix that, you would have to buy a whole new box to fix that. That's the one thing I wish they would have done differently. I wish they would have put, like I did on this, an actual enclosed bearing, and this way if it wore out, it would have just ate into that replaceable piece. So that's what I had to fix on this one. But otherwise, as you can see, everything inside of here is very strong and well built. And this thing's got up over 1,000 hours on it, and there's nothing wrong in here other than that one repair I had to make. So I wanted to share that, okay? And obviously you've got a good strong scraper and skid shoes, and it takes quite a while for these skid shoes to wear out, even though they're only one-sided. So that's another good thing about this machine. But as you can see, over time the bucket started to bow out. And like I said, this machine was used commercially under all kinds of different conditions. Rocks, it sucked in newspapers because you don't know they're there. You know, whereas if you're buying this for a homeowner unit, you'll know where the newspapers are, and if you're going to be on rocks, you'll lower the skid shoes down so you're not sucking up rocks, and the thing will last much longer. But if you're buying it commercially, like I said, I got 10 years out of this, and you know, if I wanted to, I could still use this. This machine will still work. It might not perform as well as that one does now, since there's none of that stuff going on, but this machine would definitely still get the job done. All right, now, so like I said, that's why I wanted to show these machines and show how well built they're made and how good these Tecumseh engines are. This engine has up over 1,000 hours on it. All it needs is a valve adjustment, and that engine will be good to go for probably another 1,000 hours, as long as you maintain it. Keep good fresh gas in it with stable or non-ethanol gas. Change the oil. You got nothing to worry about. These engines just go and go and go. So that's what I wanted to share about these good old snappers. So I'm getting ready to give this one a full tune-up, fix a few things, and sell it on off to the next person to get many more years of great service out of it. All right, guys, if you like this video, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you watching this. And until the next one, take care.